what are some of the things that you think home buyers overlook whenever they're getting insurance when they're purchasing a home?
Yeah, I think it's just, it's a very big purchase. It's very important, maybe one of the biggest purchases you ever make. And I just think the insurance kind of gets slid to the side.
See how you do under pressure. Yeah, I've been wanted this.
I feel like this is the only genuine conversation I have like all week.
Myself up, moving on to the better.
Hannah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
I appreciate you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
This was a little bit in the making. It took a little bit to get on the calendar,
Yeah.
but I love how we met because it was through social media, and
Yep.
a lot of people just always ask me just about social media stuff, and you're one of the most recent people that I can think of. What's funny is and we just helped you close on your dream home, which
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And the same month that we closed you, which you had reached out to me like the month right before. So it happened all fast.
I told you it would.
Well, it went from like 0 to 100 real
Yep.
quick, which I'm all about it. But
How I roll.
the same month we closed somebody that I actually met me through TikTok,
Okay.
but they reached out initially in January of 2022.
Okay.
So
Took a little longer.
It took way longer. But yeah, I'm super happy that you're here. I was down in Edmond, which that's where you're from.
Yep.
And and it was around the same time. So I was like, hey, let me swing by. And then I got to stop by. And then I also asked, of course I talked to May here, you know her.
Mm-hmm.
And then Austin Jones, you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they both not only had great things to say about you, but especially Austin being in not only the same line of work, but the same company.
Yeah.
He just had amazing things to say about you as far as like the success that you've had and everything. So I was just like, you know what? And of course we got to know each other really well through the Thursday
we talked
updates.
a lot.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, why don't you come down and let me just get to know you a little bit better. And then anybody that's listening, I hope and I know that they will get something out of your story. So getting started, you grew up actually here in Broken Arrow, Tulsa area.
Yep.
So what took you to Edmond?
Well, I was born in Edmond, so my
Okay.
parents are both from there, and my dad's job brought us to Tulsa, and so I grew up in Broken Arrow. We actually ended up moving back to Edmond for 1 year, my 9th grade year in high school. Then my dad's job brought us back to Tulsa, so pretty much as soon as I graduated high school, I think I was here about a year. Just something was telling me to go back there, and so I ended up moving there with a girlfriend from here, kind of just randomly. Had no plan, started going to UCO, and then that's actually when I got into insurance. I got a receptionist position while I was in school, so that's kind of the gist of it.
Is that where you met your husband too, over there?
Yeah, we
Okay.
met in college. We were both working at Louis there in Edmond. So,
Okay,
yeah, he
there
was
you
a
go.
bartender. I was a server. We did not like each other when we first met.
Really?
Yeah.
And that was actually going to be one of my questions is I love my wife. Most people love their spouse, but working with them, it's something different. And I know you said that that's how you met, which is kind of crazy.
I know.
And because you said we used to not like each other when we met each
no.
other. By the way, love Louise because I actually went there with May and she introduced us to those fried green beans.
green beans.
Oh,
Oh,
my
yeah.
gosh, those are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So you still work with him now.
We're back at it. Yeah,
You work with him, and you're actually his boss, right?
I am.
Hopefully, if he listens to this, he doesn't hear that part. But I mean, in marriage, I feel like the wife's always the boss, anyways. But so, how is that? Let's just talk about that really
Yeah,
quick.
it's everyone's top question.
How is that?
It's going good. It's definitely been a crazy dynamic to kind of start up. So, we met at Louis, worked together there. I could literally use the word repulsed by each other for a little bit.
Wow, this is crazy.
Yeah. We just,
Not love at first sight.
no, just
Dang.
annoyance would be the word
How
I
long?
would use.
How long?
I mean, we met in September of 2011 and we were dating by May of 2012. So not long.
Not super long. Dang, what like turned it?
I feel like it was like, you're annoying, and then it was like, are we flirting?
So it's kind of like one of those like 7th grade, like
Yeah.
when you like
Oh,
somebody,
for
so you're like,
sure.
I'm gonna be mean to
For
them type
sure.
of thing.
Yeah,
That is
unfortunately,
so
that's
funny.
how I handle things. So started dating, and then we obviously went our separate ways in the sense of career. I left Louise to work in insurance and thought that was just going to be kind of a thing I did through college as well. He stayed in the restaurant industry, stayed there until he came to the office.
So that was going to be one of my other questions, was going to be, you said that the first mentors that you put was your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like a bunch of like State Farm people.
Yeah.
So, but I was curious, and I'm assuming now that you answer that, your parents were not insurance agents.
My parents are not insurance agents, but my dad is a insurance adjuster. So
Okay.
he didn't really talk to us about that as kids. It was obviously a completely different end of insurance. But I kind of always knew a little bit about it, I guess. Yeah. But actually my grandma worked for a State Farm agent, and the State Farm agent that I ended up working for. So that was kind of how I got into it. But then I always knew a little bit about it because of my dad. Just, again, total opposite end of the spectrum there.
So you're in school, you're a receptionist. So like probably like,
Answering phones,
yeah,
mailing out things.
And just in a quick recap, like walk me through your promotions and where you're at today. Because now you run your own agency.
Yeah.
Not only do you get to work with your husband, but you have 5 full-time employees, and you've had a lot of success. So walk me through that really quick on like, how does somebody get there? Because I feel like it's 2025. A lot of people don't think that that's possible nowadays. And I've had conversations with people that say, they just think that people get to where they're at just by pure luck. And it's like, not necessarily. So walk me through your story of like what got you promoted and kind of what got you interested in insurance and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So started as reception, was literally like, oh, this looks better than working at Louis 4 nights a week. So
I don't have to go home and change.
Salary. Oh my gosh, this is going to be crazy. So I started there, like I said, answering phones in the back, didn't even have barely a desk. And
dang, they didn't even have you at the front. You were at the back.
Yeah, the back.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just answering calls for a very large insurance agent. And so, the phone just rang. Still really didn't have a desire to do anything with that. He asked me to do sales, I think like on a pinch one time. Someone was out, maternity leave, I can't remember what it was. And they're like, hey, could you do sales? I'm like, well, I'm not the type to say no, so let me try it. So I actually got into sales, was doing a good job, but I was still in school full time. Actually went to him and said like, I'm up to, my ears. I can't handle the pressure of this. Is there a different position in the office for me? He said yes, so he moved me into customer service. I ended up learning that. And then from there, he just kind of put me wherever he needed throughout the years. He offered and was like, hey, don't you want to be an agent? Like, you should be an agent. You should be an agent. I'm like, I'm just really happy. Like, I really enjoy working for you. Like, I don't know that I have that desire to own my own business. And it wasn't until we were doing a review with a customer one point, and he turned to me after the customer left and said, you'd be a damn good agent. And so I got home to Tanner. It just kind of sat on me for a month or two. And I told him, I said, I think it's taken me a long time to realize that like this is my calling. And I think I just thought like insurance cannot be my calling.
Yeah.
Like, people hate us, like there's no way that's what I'm going to do. But just little tiny habits that I grew over the years and learned from Dennis and all of that, just kind of right place, right time, it hit me. And from that moment, I said, Dennis, I think I am ready to do that. And so it just kind of skyrocketed from there.
So how long did it take you from when you started as a receptionist to become an agent?
Oh, I held on to working for him for 8 years.
8 years.
He probably started asking me at year 2 or 3. And
I
just was genuinely so happy working for him that I just was clouded a little bit, I guess. So I think it worked out in timing for me, but...
That also says a lot about that person. Anytime that I go look at a company to work for, I always look at 3 things. But the one that I want to share with you is I look at who my direct report's going to be, because I don't want to have a boss or a manager. I want to have a mentor.
Yeah.
I want to have a friend, somebody that's going to help me grow. And there's so many people out there that are very want to make sure that they keep you from growing so you won't ever leave.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you were probably making his agency a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that says a lot about him. So now you're an insurance agent. I'm a loan officer. I feel like I should know a lot more about insurance than I do, just because it's a big part.
Yeah.
So we just closed a deal early yesterday. I had a closing that closed early from what it was on the contract.
Mm-hmm.
But it was late, as in fact, as when I talk about they had it scheduled for 8:30, and it had to move to 2:30. And of course, the agent wasn't very happy. The buyers were like, kind of confused, and it was because of insurance. Because I have to. One of the big key parts of getting everything done, and I don't know if you know, but it takes 35 to 40 people to close one deal. One of them being the insurance people getting us what we need in order to be able to, and the correct thing. So we needed, of course, to have the evidence of insurance. People out there probably don't know what that means, but it's pretty much like a legit quote, would you say?
Yep,
okay. But everything on that has to be correct. So
Perfectly
the closing
correct.
date, and of course, can you get this changed because we moved closing dates, and then they send it to us for like a completely different address. And then long story short, we can't resubmit to get a clear close until we have that. So I should know a little bit more about this because it's a big part of my business, but I don't. And honestly, if I did know more, it's not my lane to talk to people about. But sometimes it can be more like a burden than an actual like resource later down the road. If something bad was to happen during the home buying process. So what are some of the things that you think home buyers overlook whenever they're getting insurance when they're purchasing a home?
Yeah, I think it's just, it's a very big purchase. It's very important, maybe one of the biggest purchases you ever make. And I just think the insurance kind of gets slid to the side. It's kind of a nuisance. I tell people all the time, probably say it at least a few times a week, I understand that this isn't fun to pay for. I feel like I wouldn't be as successful as I was if I thought insurance was just the coolest thing that people wanted to spend their money on. But I've also seen a lot of tragedy, unfortunately, and I hope that buyers don't ever have to use their insurance in a crazy situation. But I just wish that people would take maybe even 5 to 10 more minutes and like actually learn about their insurance policy. And that's what I'm really trying to do with my office is educate, because you might want something that, hey, quick to close, let's get this done, let's get the cheapest price possible. But talking with a local agent and maybe spending $10 to $15 more a month maybe is going to make a world of difference. God forbid something happened. So that's the thing that I'm trying to move in my team and instill in my team is care about the person enough to ask them for a 5-minute phone conversation to be the difference between all the companies that are going to be shooting out quotes for a new home buyer. It's really going to matter at claim time. And I think I care a little too much about it, to be honest, over my 12 years now in the industry. It's a little nerdy, but it's important. And people a lot of times just think, I don't want to buy anything else from you. You're just trying to sell me stuff. I'm never going to use this. And again, I hope you never do. But when you do, the difference between not taking the 5 minutes and taking the 5 minutes with a local agent could make a world of difference for your family. So
how many calls do you think you get a month on a monthly basis of people that are going through a tragic season of their life? Maybe their house burnt down, maybe they just totaled their car, different situations where that's whenever the insurance kicks in. Because I'm sure I'm sure a portion of them called the 1-800 number or whatever, but you probably get notified of it or whatever. Like, so how many people do you think are, like, percentage wise, are going through those times? Because I think that it's so hard to think about going through a divorce if you're like not anywhere near close, that being a thing in your life.
Gonna happen. Yeah. I'm not a numbers girly, so those percentages are not something I'm going to be able to roll off. But I would say if I come in the mornings and check the claims, especially auto claims is what happens most of the time. I mean, we get 5 to 10 a day of someone just sideswiping someone. Well, that could cost $30,000. I mean, the cost of things today is just
10 a day?
Yeah, I would say.
Wow.
And I mean, I just got started 3 years ago. So for other agents or for me in 10 years, that could be 30 a day, 40 a day. I mean, think about it. If you drive home, you're probably going to see one accident today, that person's life is altered. It's an inconvenience. Hopefully they're okay. But again, the insurance policy can make a huge difference in finances and, all the things that you would need coming from an accident. Home, luckily, my agency is not seeing a house burn down every day.
Yeah.
Luckily, that's not the case. But the statistics are high, for that to happen. Yeah. I mean, I've been unfortunately through it. The first 3 months of my agency, I had a total lost house fire. And the fact that I can know for a fact that the fact that she was with me versus a 1-800 number. I mean, I went to her hotel, I brought water, I did everything I could from a local standpoint, and she's probably, if not paying less with us, maybe the same price as not having that local, stuff. So it makes a difference.
So you started your, the agency 3 years ago, is that?
September of 2021.
September of 2021.
So we'll celebrate 4 years this year.
Great time to open up an agency during the middle of COVID, right?
Luckily there were people that opened in 2020. That
was probably worse.
Yeah, I would assume that would have been worse. I think unfortunately the pandemic did open up people's eyes a little bit to, things can happen like this. I never thought I would live through something like that. We were all kind of in a panic of what's going to happen. So it might have actually helped the insurance industry, with people being a little bit more like, oh crap, things unplanned can happen. But again, it kind of comes down to trying to talk people into caring about it a little more.
And so one of the things that you say that it was one of your biggest challenges, but also one of the biggest successes that you've had was saving your agency and being able to recruit people, and now having a successful business 3 years later. So for entrepreneurs, business owners out there, what advice would you have for them? And talk to me about what that means, saving your agency. Did you take over a book that was kind of going downhill? But I feel like there's a lot of people maybe listening that are on the verge of just maybe giving up. We actually had a lady come in, and she has a business in around 31st and Garnett. There's a lot of Hispanic businesses there, and she, out of other people that we've heard, but this lady actually came in the office, and she has a store down there, and she was like, hey, ever since the new administration came in, business has been way low because people are scared to come out because they're undocumented. So there's all this different things. And so she's just on the verge there of just closing her shop down, right? I actually just went down through Cherry Street yesterday. There was a really nice hair salon that was open and closed within a year. So there's so many people. I think it says maybe 2 out of the 5 business owners that start a business will have a business in 5 years. So what advice would you have for somebody that's maybe on and saying this is a lot harder than I thought? And then how did you kind of overcome those obstacles?
Yeah. So, saving for agency was one thing before I started, and then ultimately convincing people to stay with a brand new agent. I had experience as a team member before, but I was not ever the agent. And so it took a lot of, building trust with these customers to make sure that they knew that, I was young and green as far as agency goes. And so convincing them to stay with me and give me a shot. Customer service is obviously a huge deal to me, as well as the insurance industry in general. That's literally what we're there for. I think it just comes down to daily habits. I mean, if you can continue to be passionate about it and do the tiny, tiny grinding, for people that are about to close down or do something like that, I would say step back, take a breath. Is this what you want to be doing? And if you want to be doing it, then you hopefully can make adjustments to where you can withstand, the trials to where you come out positive on the end. Every day is not easy for me. I didn't know how to run a business. I certainly didn't know how to, perform as a leader in this sense, but it's still overwhelming to me every day. I just have to close my door, take a second. Why am I doing this? And just continue to push forward. So
talk to me about the recruiting part of it. I mean, you went from a role to where you were a big top performer for the agency you were at. Therefore, you were a essential piece of the team because you were converting business people. You were keeping people in the agency. And now you had to go find that yourself for your own agency. So it sounds like you have good people in your team right now. That's not easy to find nowadays. So how long did that take to find? And any tips that you would have for people that are maybe thinking about hiring their next hire or just their first hire?
Yeah, the agent I work for involved me a lot in that. So I give him kudos for kind of letting me see what that looked like without it being my decision at that point. I hire off personality. or character. I can train the insurance part. I don't care if you know a lick about it or not. Ultimately, I want you to learn it the way that I feel is best for you to learn it, because I've already been through it all. So let's learn it, without kind of the hiccups that I went through. So I'm really just looking for good people. And I think you could probably apply that in any business. If the person's willing to work and they have a heart of gold and, they're willing to put in the effort, it doesn't really matter what you're teaching them. Everyone can learn something. It's just a matter of finding good people. And so that's what I do. When I'm interviewing, I'm not really concerned about like, how fast can I get them to quote this auto policy or how much are they going to close? It's, are they making eye contact? Are they nice? Are they laughing? Do they seem genuinely happy? Are they willing to potentially go the extra mile? And so I feel like I've been very successful by doing that. Also just networking and trying to get those people from referrals, versus maybe them just applying online is, hey, does anybody have any family or friends that maybe aren't happy where they're at? Again, insurance might not be the funnest thing, but it's provided me a wonderful life. And so that's ultimately what I'm trying to copy and paste into every one of my team members.
Love it. Maybe, there's some agents that come out of your own office later down the road.
Yeah, I would love that. I tell the girls all the time, they're like, well, we just want to work for you. I'm like, well, let me tell you a story about me and Dennis, because that's what I said as well.
And is that the guy, because I know that you're in part of a huge office and there's like, is it one other agent or two?
Just Dennis and I.
Okay, so it's him. That's what I was going to ask.
Yep.
Well, that makes sense now.
Yeah, we've come full circle. I owe a lot to him. He's genuinely the best guy ever.
That's awesome. So let's talk about people that are listening that when you ask them like about their insurance, they just probably might be able to tell you what they pay a month or so. So there's a lot of people that don't know much about insurance. So what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make whenever they're picking coverages for their house insurance, their auto insurance, that it's common knowledge to you, but to most people, they're just kind of like, have no clue?
Yeah, I would say people are not picking their coverage. A lot of people, come off of their parents' insurance and they just keep with that. They never have a conversation about it. I like to talk, so I'll talk to someone about their insurance all day. But people just kind of go with it. They have no idea what the numbers mean. They haven't, again, taken that 5 to 10 minutes maybe to just have a real life conversation and allowing someone to put it into street terms on what those numbers mean that you're paying for. And that's what I try to tell people. Like, you're paying $250 a month for your insurance and you have no idea what it is. Just let me and my team look at it. If you're better off there, no hard feelings. We'll check in with you again later. But most people just sit there and pay the bill. It's on auto pay, whatever, and they just have no idea if it would impact them negatively or positively, when something bad happens. So that's the biggest thing I try to tell people is, whether I sell you something or not, I would feel better if we took 5 or 10 minutes and you knew what you had, and then that way you can make the best decision for you moving forward. And I think my team going into it, that mindset has just allowed us to be successful, because I'm not super concerned about like, we got to sell this many policies today. Hey, let's try to talk to this many people today. Let's try to have a genuine conversation and actually care about the conversation you're having.
So this is knowledge for anybody listening, but honestly for me, from an insurance point of view, what is the one thing somebody that's looking to buy a house should know for sure when they're picking their insurance to cover their home?
How your roof is covered here in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah,
roof.
You've got to know it.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what are the options? Like, to be completely honest with you, you asked me about my roof coverage. I have no clue.
Most people don't, and that's fine. Like, that is my
job. So what if
know?
I'm buying a house tomorrow? What are you educating me on the roof?
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance, especially obviously in my area in the OKC metro, that your roof is going to get hit with hail. I would say probably a good chance in the first 5 years. I don't actually know the statistics, but if you go with a company that, again, looks great on paper for your closing, maybe it looks great, it takes your monthly payment down, and that's all they're looking at, and then you have hailstorm come through and it hits your roof and you have a low grade policy, you're going to be paying for that roof out of pocket. So there's pretty much 2 ways to insure your roof: at 100% replacement value, which is what you want, and then the rest is up to you. Again, some people have it in their savings account to pay for that out of pocket, but we know the statistic is that most people don't have that much money in savings anymore. So
what's the price difference annually, would you say, for a full replacement as opposed to anything else?
Yeah, there's so many factors that go into an insurance policy, but not that much. I mean, the difference, most of the time people just don't even know. And 90% of the time, if I say, hey, this company can save you $700 a year, but I just want to let you know that not only is your deductible higher out of pocket, but also I don't see where they're covering your roof fully, which could cost you a lot at claim time. No one's staying with that policy that's $800 less a year, Yeah. I mean, most people, again, don't have it in savings to pay for that, which just means they don't get their roof fixed.
And something, you came into the industry at an interesting time, not only in the middle of COVID, but I don't know when exactly it was. Based on my experience with what I do, I want to say it was maybe now coming up on 2 years, that insurance started going up like dramatically, not just here, like all over. What caused that, and what does that look like? Because I mean, that's still pretty, like, I know a little bit about it, but like what happened?
Yeah, there's lots of obviously regulations state to state that go into the insurance rates. I mean, inflation is a word that I'm tired of saying, and I know people are tired of hearing me say it. But that's it. I mean, it went from costing $3,000 for a fender bender to now $10,000 because parts, labor, if they can get parts, all those things. And then on the house side, I mean, you obviously know from a construction standpoint, I didn't think I'd pay the price per square foot that I paid for my house, and I have to look at that from an insurance standpoint too, of how I can rebuild that. And so the cost is just going up. And unfortunately, we have to mimic that because we have to have enough money to pay for something tragic. That's the promise that we offer. So a lot of it's unfortunately inflation. At least, in my agency, we did a lot during COVID for people because there wasn't as many people on the roads. There wasn't as many accidents happening, and we were able to lower rates like crazy. So at least from my standpoint, we're just right back up to pre-COVID rates.
Really?
Yeah, but most people don't look at it that way. They took the rate down and now we're taking it back up, which again comes back to my repetitiveness and saying it's about a conversation. So when I call someone and say, hey, your rate went up this year, but actually when I'm looking at it, what you were paying with us in 2019, you're still lower than what you were. And so that's kind of the difference for me and what company I wanted to represent. And I'm just through and through loyal to them because they've been the same to me and I see them be the same to our policyholders. So
yeah, fortunately for me, I get to use the word inflation in a much better light. So people do come in and complain about how expensive houses are now, but I say, if you're getting now, your house is going to be worth this much more in the next year, 3 years, 5 years.
You taught Tanner and I that.
Yeah, and then that's going to be you're going to be happy about inflation.
Yeah, he's constantly looking at all the comps in the neighborhood. He's like, oh, Will taught me this. And I'm like, heck yeah, let's go.
I love it. Okay, so now we've been talking a lot about people that are have no idea even what their coverage is on their primary home, which that's a lot of people. They just, own one home. But I'm sure you probably in your book of business have people that own multiple homes. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about what is the difference between somebody who maybe insures just one home as opposed to a bunch of different homes. One, I'm assuming, do they get a better deal? Two, is it different coverage? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so investment properties are insured a little bit different because you obviously aren't living in that house, and it's kind of the tenant's responsibility to insure their own stuff. So the policy's a little bit different. You still want to review that, make sure it's the right coverage. That way you have everything done if something happens and you're losing that income there. A lot of those, because they're investment properties, are kind of standalone. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily any more discounts involved there. But someone who owns multiple homes, like with me, that are primary, whether it's a lake house, whatever like that, certainly, the more policies you have, the better rates you'll hopefully get. And then kind of one thing on that, just for people to know, is shopping is important. Reviewing your rates every few years with your agent, making sure that you're not just overpaying for insurance. 100% I agree with. Respect, people looking around. But statistically, staying with the same company over time is going to save you money. So people who switch every 6 months to save $5, had they stayed with the company that they were with prior, they would probably be paying a lower rate overall, down the road.
And we've been talking about people don't really know what they're signing up for. So a lot of the times, and this is something that, I mean, I make sure to tell people, because sometimes in order to buy that home that you want to buy, you have to make some sacrifices to be able to get the qualification to work, right? So I always tell them, hey, I'm not the insurance agent, but just know that if something was to happen, you're paying a very, very high deductible. So after closing, I would highly recommend you go back to them and then get it. Sure, your payment's going to go up and all that stuff, but I promise you, like, if something's to happen, I think it goes up to 5%. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can have 10% if you want. And
I think the highest we can do is 5%.
Oh, okay, like on a loan.
Yeah. So I mean, for anybody listening, like the average, let's just say $100,000 home, which that's just not realistic. But I'm gonna get flack either way on even saying like our average. Like, I know yours is a little higher over here, but like here in Tulsa, I think we're like right around 300,000. They're gonna say, yeah, right. Where are you gonna get a $300,000 house? But just for basic math, $100,000 home, normal deductible 1%, $1,000 if something happens. 5%, $5,000, which again, not very many people have $100,000 homes. Most people have $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 homes. So it is very, very like important for people to understand that. There's so many people that will get stuff in the mail. Like, I probably get 10 things in the mail about insurance, but it's like, I just see the price because that's the only thing I understand. Just like where most people, I think I talked to you about this whenever we first met. I'm like, most people just know, just like they're like, what's the rate? Because that's all they know. And then, but I don't know what, maybe the current coverage I have is way better than if I was to move over there. So I wanted to talk to you about really, like, what do you think attribute to your success over the last 3 years? Because it sounds like you've had a lot of success over the last 3 years. And 3 years is not a long time. So what do you think attributed to that?
Support of Tanner is probably the number one thing. Before he came over, he was supporting, us financially because I wanted to put every dollar I made back into the business. So being fortunate enough for that to happen allowed me to kind of skyrocket, within my first year. And I attribute all of that to him.
Reinvesting back into your business.
I pretty much didn't pay myself, and I just put every dollar I could back into training my team. I'm also willing to grind, I was there all the time.
How many hours do you think you worked your first year as an agent?
I don't want to lie. I don't want to over exaggerate. But I would say, I feel like I work 24/7 still. But I would say, like, in the office, if an average is 40 hours a week, 35 hours a week, I was probably working 60 to 70. But then I was working as soon as I got home. Now, I'm not saying I wasn't watching Netflix while I was working. Don't feel bad for me, It's just something different when it's your own business. Like, it doesn't feel like work. I pretty much still do that. Tira's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm watching The Gentleman with You, but I could be getting this stuff done to make my day easier for tomorrow, and I don't think a negative thing of it, What
do you think you're working now, year 3? Going into year 4?
My mind's always working, but I'm still there all the time. Yeah, I'm saying I'm probably working the 35 to 40 hours. I've kind of maintained it down to that, but I'm ultimately at the office all the time. Unless we have something like today or things like that. But we talked about it, like, hey, what do I want to work this year? Like, do I want to work less? And I don't. I want to be flexible on it. That's why I got into it, for financial freedom and for time freedom. But, like, that's where I want to be. I want to be there with my team. I want to be able to leave and go to lunch for 2 hours if I want to, 100%. I would be lying if I said that wasn't accurate. But really, at the end of the day, when I'm not there during office hours, I'm like, what's the team doing? Like, what could I be doing? Is someone calling that maybe they have a question, need my help? They definitely are like, get out of here. Leave us alone. So
yeah, I love watching Shark Tank. I'm actually having a couple of guys that were on Shark Tank a couple of years ago next month. And they always say, they said a business owner, somebody that wants to go do their own business, is somebody that's saying, I don't want to work 40 hours. I want to work 80 hours.
Yeah, I want to work 100 hours, if that's even math possible.
So I don't think this made it to the podcast, but we kind of started the conversation 5 minutes or so before. And we were talking about how this is the most stressful birthday I just had a couple of days ago. And I think that you and I, now after having this conversation, I think we're a lot more alike than I even thought we were.
Yeah.
So with somebody like you, you know, you're, how long have you been married now for?
Crap.
I think I asked you that.
8 years.
I think I asked you that when I met you.
20. I'm again not a math girl. I think we just celebrated.
What month in 2016?
8 years. We got married in July of 2017.
Okay, so
8, right? I
no,
just celebrated
so you
8.
are 7.5 because I'm at 8.5.
I'm gonna be 8 this year.
I'm July of 2016.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Tanner.
You know what's? I feel bad because I think I asked you guys this when I met you, and then the
Probably.
same thing happened.
I should have known. I might get it tattooed, maybe.
So you're married. You have a big team. You're like, how do you balance like actually turning it off? Because I think that's one of the things that has really helped me is like fully turning it off, at least for a portion of the day or the week. How do you balance that?
Well, probably not the best. I feel like I was able to balance it when Tanner was in the restaurant industry. You know, like he would talk about his work, I would talk about mine, and then we'd kind of be done with it. Now that he works there, you know, sometimes we have to stop ourselves. You know, we're at dinner, we're having a good time, we're talking about something, and then something comes up about insurance, or I blink or something, and then it's like 20 minutes later, we're talking about the office. And so I would be lying if I said that wasn't a huge transition that we're going through right now. Again, it's our business, so there's no real negative connotation with it. It's just, hey, we got to shut up. Like, okay, no more work talk. So we're going through that right now. He's been there just celebrated 2 years. We're not perfect at it, but we just kind of have to be like, okay, shut up. Like, let's talk about literally anything else.
Yeah.
So it's fueling, you know, to talk about it and to be able to bounce ideas off each other 24/7, and him be able to actually give me that feedback as well. But we've got to be intentional about it, or else that's going to be our whole lives. So
yeah. One of the things that I like to ask is people, what's the best advice that they've ever received? And yours was really basic, but I think it was really powerful. And you were told not to reinvent the wheel, just to do the basics. And that goes the same for any business out there. I feel like there's so many people out there that feel stuck, or maybe they're doing well, but they've plateaued and they want to just try to reinvent the wheel themselves, and it just, they don't have any success. So what are some of those basic things that you started doing when you were your first year to now?
Yeah, I think it goes again back to that conversation. So like, I could get in my head before I make a bunch of calls to see if people want quotes, and I have to take a breath and think, okay, why am I calling these people? I'm not calling them to hit these numbers. I'm not calling them to do this. But if I call them with the genuine idea that I want to help them with their insurance, whether I actually bring them over, or I save them money, or I don't save them money, like, I'm calling to educate them, to make one more person a little bit more aware of what the heck they're paying for. And that's ultimately what my leadership, Stan Walton, told me was, you know, you don't got to reinvent the wheel, just keep having conversations with people. And that's just, if I can come in every day and get the team to come in every day doing that, it just seems to kind of work itself out. And it makes it sound like I'm saying it's not hard work, because it is. But
sometimes
just
it has to be like
intentionality.
100 conversations. Sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, it is 100 conversations. I mean, our closing ratio would probably make someone cry. You know, like, we've got to talk to a lot of people to get someone to say yes.
How many calls do you think you make on a weekly basis? You by yourself?
Oh, I would think at least 500. I mean,
you make those calls.
Yeah.
5.
But
I'm
crazy.
I thought people literally, like, May is like, she thinks the amount of like calls and all the stuff that I do is crazy. 500.
Yeah,
I'm not making 500 calls a week.
I'm ideally hoping, it doesn't happen every day, but I'm ideally hoping, especially once we get up and running, that like each of us are making 100 outbound calls. Now, some of those only last 10 seconds because we get buzzed, you know, they've got us blocked or whatever. So I'm not talking to 100 people a day.
So 500. So like, you're talking to how many people a day? Like 80 at least?
No, like, okay,
50?
If I call 100 people, let's say, again, not a math girly, 40 people answer, probably 10 to 20 would say, sure, you can quote me. And then let's dial that down to the people that actually respond like the next day after I quote them. So it's a grind.
100 calls, 40% answered, 20% you can quote me, and maybe 10% actually come through.
like a good closing ratio. I mean, I'm to a point where I'm talking to a lot of referrals now and things like that. So when I'm training the girls, they're like, well, you're closing, so much stuff. And I'm like, but I'm getting like the cream of the crop, people that talk to me, unfortunately, because I'm the agent, they'll listen to me more than they're going to listen to you. And I went through that my whole career before becoming an agent. They just want to talk to the agent. But that's the importance in anyone who's running an agency. You got to be there. You got to be there so that if someone does want to talk to you, you're at least available within the same day, to discuss it.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much for coming down. You had to make the long drive, as I like to call it. Most people are like, it's not that long. And I'm like, no, to me, it's long.
Tanner drove me, so that was nice. I worked on the way here. But we get to go to Micosina after this. And May gave me a bunch of places to go shop for the house. So I'm going to have fun the rest of the day. And this was fun. So I appreciate you, giving me the opportunity to come.
Of course. Where can people find you?
My Instagram is not that cool, but you can find me on Instagram, Hannah Nickel Agent. But my website is just hannahnickel.com. So
it's kind of cool. You're always traveling, which we didn't get into that, but that's a good balance there.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're still working. I'm sure you're still working when you're traveling.
That's the benefit. I can literally work from my home or from my phone. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming again.
Thank you.
Let's see how you do under pressure.
I feel like this is the only genuine conversation I have like all week.